Kamala Harris is reportedly thinking about throwing her support behind Joe Biden, and a former Obama staffer says that Bernie Sanders is the worst.
I am so stunned that they feel that way. Yeah. We're back with Democratic strategist Colin Rogero and Capitol Hill reporter for the Daily Caller, Henry Rogers. Let's start with the Obama people. I mean, it was also reported by a Fox News reporter that Obama himself was thinking of getting involved against Bernie, not in support of Joe or someone else, but against Bernie. That had been floated before by Ryan Lizzo and other people as well. And we do see Obama world starting to somewhat mobilize against Sanders publicly. Let's take a listen to what Jim Messina had to say on the topic.
It is, but in the general election, it's a message that I think is going to get him killed. Yeah. I mean, I think he's the worst candidate in a general election for exactly that reason.
Do you think Bernie's the worst candidate?
Oh, I don't think there's a question about it. I think it's very clear to me that with these swing voters that I care about, the Trump-Obama voters in the Midwestern states, Bernie Sanders is not the candidate we need to beat Donald Trump in November.
First of all, Colin, these are the geniuses that lost us like 1,000 state house seats and governor's mansions and all of that, and thought that Hillary Clinton would be the most electable candidate. So let's just put that on the table first. What's your reaction?
That inside the Beltway electability quotient, right? Like it has almost 100% wrong, prediction.
Right.
Yeah, it is. So look, I think Jim has his particular favorite, and I wouldn't necessarily say that's reflective of all Obama world, but Jim. And Jim's got his opinion. I think he's wrong.
What's strange about Messina is that, I mean, first of all, isn't he the guy who advised the Conservative Party? I think he advised Daniel, whoever called the Brexit referendum. But broadly, it's like
Theresa May, wasn't it?
No, it was before. I'm totally blanking on his name. But whenever Jim Messina gets involved with something like this, it's like with Crystal's point. This is the guy whose campaign in the White House fully went all in on Hillary Clinton. And what do they know about winning back these swing voters when they're the ones who lost them in the first place?
No, I mean that's what I'm saying. Yeah. This is a typical just elitist DC knowledge. They're not really looking outside the Beltway. They're not really talking to these voters. They're not listening to C-SPAN callers who call in every day.
Right.
Who middle America. This is the people who actually matter.
Show is the greatest thing.
And it is the greatest thing. I love those callers. But seriously, Bernie Sanders has always stuck to his guns. He has been the same guy since I've known him. I see him in the hallways of the Senate every day.
You guys have fought,
but he sticks to his guns, and I respect him because he's not a yes man, and he doesn't go around like the rest of politicians acting a certain way to attract a base.
Colin, you can speak to this too. One thing I think people don't really understand is the sheer amount of money at stake if the Obama presidency is to be repudiated under Sanders. Like, you have Jim Messina, Anita Dunn, all these other people who worked for Obama who are making a lot of money working for corporations and others in communications gigs. Could you go into, I mean, what is at stake for a lot of these Obama people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can't answer it 100% because I don't work for those same corporations, right? I work for candidates who want to change things in the country. My guess is that there's quite a bit. There's quite a bit of public affairs money and campaigns out there that once your particular group is out of power, you're no longer of value. So there's probably a lot at risk there. I would say,
especially with a Sanders win, it's worse for them even than if Republicans were to win again, because Sanders' win represents a wholesale repudiation of that part of the Democratic Party. That means that it's not just this cycle that you're out of power and the gig flow isn't as good. It means that the whole thing has collapsed underneath of you and is probably not coming back. So it's more at stake in a way than even if a Republican were to win again.
I tend to think that these people who have survived in politics for 25 to 30 years will find a way to continue to survive. So I'm not worried about their bottom line. However, what I would say that their miscalculation is this overanalysis on a quantitative picture of the electorate. And they don't understand the fervent emotion behind some of these, rises of different candidates. That's the qualitative portion they're missing, and they need to pay more attention to.
Totally.
So at the same time, New York Times is reporting that Kamala is looking at endorsing Joe Biden. Not an entirely surprising move, given that, the way she ended up campaigning. She campaigned in this sort of, typical neoliberal vein, even though initially she came out and she said she supported Bernie's Medicare for All. She co-sponsored in the Senate. It seemed like she was going to position herself as a progressive. Of course, she famously went very hard against Joe Biden and his record on busing. That little girl was me in the first debate, which, won her over, won her a spike in the polls, at least briefly. briefly, what do you make of this development, Henry, that she may have?
I think it's extremely interesting, but I saw it coming. I think I predicted this on the show not too long ago.
That's true.
That Kamala was going to be the VP candidate for Biden if he did win the primary election. I think it's extremely interesting. I think it's interesting in the fact that she did throw those jabs at Biden throughout the election, throughout the debates.
Of hollow hypocrisy.
But again, exactly. And I think she kind of, at the same time, in the background, was setting herself up for this slot, playing herself close with Biden kind of towards the end of her campaign.
And not hitting
being nice.
Buttigieg.
Yeah, not hitting Buttigieg, exactly.
Shoulder punches, yeah.
So I'm not really surprised by this move, and I honestly could see, if Biden did win the primary, him picking her as the candidate.
What do you think, Colin?
Yeah, I agree. I was of the same opinion you were. I thought that was going to be a 1-2 combination for a long period of time, and I don't think it's a particularly bad one. I wonder what Kamala is going to talk about, because I couldn't understand why she was running for president in the first place from her own campaign's messaging. So I'm a little curious as to what it's going to be, except just maybe adding some diversity to
Given her criminal justice record, she should endorse Mike Bloomberg.
Come on. I'm sure they've talked.
Do you think it would help Biden in California in the primary? What it looked like, at least from the polling, is that a lot of her support when she dropped out of the race in California, and that was the place she had the strongest amount of support for obvious reasons. It seemed like a good chunk of that actually went to Bernie Sanders. Do you think that if she were to endorse Biden, that would help him in California, which is obviously a critical state?
Probably not. I don't think her numbers are particularly high in California. The last ones I saw,
like 7%, I think.
Yeah, she was not particularly high. It probably gives them a little bump. I think, look, here's the calculus that I think and where it's helpful is from an image perspective. There's a woman of color on the ticket, and that will excite Democrats, because it'll be the first time a woman is going to be vice president, and certainly the first time she'll be second in line to the presidency if Joe wins. And I think that's kind of the appeal.
I think that's the calculus. I don't know that actually works out, because I mean, if that was the case, then people would have supported her in the primary. That had a chance to back, a woman of color, and they decided to go with the old white men. We had a chance to elect a woman last time around, and there was apathetic turnout because they didn't like what she stands for. So I do think that's the calculus. I'm not sure that's the way that voters actually make up their minds on these things. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you both.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Next week on Rising, author Michael Lind, he profiles his book, New Class War.
And writer Matt Karp, friend of the show, breaks down the whole electability argument, particularly when it comes to Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. He crunched the data on that. It's pretty interesting. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll be posting more content here over the weekend. And also, don't forget to check out rising.substack.com to learn details about the book, how you can come see us in LA, in New York. We're going to have some new dates to announce and a pre-order link for you very soon, so check in there, rising.substack.com. Have a great weekend, guys.
See you guys.